We've got a trio of tight ends to talk about now. Now, Oscar Delp has been all the rage of New England sports radio waves over the past couple of weeks as some of the local guys have kind of fallen in love with him and talked him up a great deal. I've talked about him a few times on this program. The one that really stuck with me was kind of the Jimmy Liao episode, Jimmy Liao, MD, Detroit Lions writer, podcaster, etc., came on this show, and we talked about some of the medical concerns. And Oscar Delp was one of the guys we talked about, and Jimmy talked about his concerns with the fact that, like we talked about, look, it's very cool, right? He's very tough, and that's badass, and I love it. Okay, don't get me wrong. Like I'm the ultimate dude who's like, yeah, just play through it. I never go to the doctor. Like I don't believe. Like I, I'm not a guy who's like wary about that sort of thing. But at the same time, from an outsider perspective, sometimes tough ends in a very short career. And we talked about just concerns about Delp with like, okay, he played on that broken foot all year, but that also means that broken foot hasn't healed for a year.
Right.
So is he going to have to really seriously change some of the things he's doing? Does he have the ability, like the self restraint to stop himself from going 150 miles an hour every day and let that thing heal for 6 weeks? Is he going to have to have surgery, and how is he going to bounce back from that? I think there's just a number of kind of red flags about that situation medically that people are overlooking and not really considering. The athlete is great. The production, obviously not there. Clint Goss, who's again another real good draft analyst, but a Georgia guy, came on yesterday and talked about the production and how Georgia, under this new offensive coordinator, whose name I don't recall, um, has really
Bo,
dropped off usage of the tight end.
I can't remember the guys. It was rather Boba or because I know it was Munkin was the previous guy, right?
Right. And
Munkin,
that's what he had said since Munkin left, that basically the tight end usage at Georgia has completely fallen off a cliff. And like in the past, it had been a place to go when you were a tight end. And so it's kind of still got that rep. But the reality of when you get there is they barely throw you the ball. And so the production, I understand that, but I still have the questions about the injury concerns and the red flags there.
yeah. I mean, I tend to agree. My main issue is just I made this comment to somebody and I said, when you look at his athleticism and you look at where he's at when it comes to his production, this is kind of like the JJ McCarthy of tight ends. JJ McCarthy, literally, there were games where he would only have 15 passes, like 15 pass attempts an entire game, or the next game be 20 pass attempts, and you're running in these small sample sizes, and you're going off of okay, he was really freaking good on these 4 plays that out of the 20 passes he made. So there's something there to him. So you get kind of stuck in this idea of what could be, and I'm just in a place for us where we did not re-sign Austin Hooper. So that means Hunter Henry's the guy. So if we do take Oscar Delp, what if the foot situation, like you said, is going to affect him into the season? Because does he need to have an operation done? That where's he at with the foot? A lot of questions, like you said there. But then too, like, is he going to be a reliable catcher? Because there's a lot of times where he gets thrown balls up in the middle, and he's had some drop issues. He's a very good blocker, but we just signed a blocking tight end. So and
Yeah.
Julian Hill. So it's kind of like, is this the kind of guy we need? Are we just taking a guy for what could be when we have guys that aren't even featured on here and Royer, Jolly that have shown the production, and I'd rather see that be a Hooper replacement and possibly the Hunter Henry successor. So that's kind of where I sit with him.
Yeah, I mean, I do see a world where Delp, if he can remain healthy and get that foot healed up and continue, playing well and play in more tight end friendly, more pass heavy system. I mean, I forget the specific number that Clint talked about on yesterday's episode, but he said something like the top receiver in Georgia had about 67, I think 65 receptions. The second leading receiver at Georgia had 27.
Right.
So it was like such a fall off, and they just didn't use the passing game at all, really. So
Right.
it's I understand that, and I do think that like athletically and in terms of skills and stuff, he could be one of those rare tight ends that gives you blocking and receiving. And so that's what I like about him. And it's also what I like about the next guy here, Sam Roush, because I think Roush is a similar situation in that you didn't see a lot of pass game production out of Roush at Stanford. And the simple fact of the matter is, it's not about scheme at Stanford. It's about the fact that his quarterback sucks. And, his quarterback is not good at football, which is a problem when you're a guy who's a pass catcher. Okay, if your quarterback sucks at throwing the ball, it's going to be rough for you to catch it. And I think we saw down at the Senior Bowl. Now, three, I heard he did have a few drops, and that was a little bit of an issue. But I think in the first 2 days, we saw at practice some good hands, reasonably reliable hands. And he's a big guy, big hands, big soft hands, big body. The one question with him is this historically short. And he does have a historically short, like small catch radius for a tight end. For his size, his arms are rather short. I think they're like 32 inches. Let me pull them up real quick. Yeah, 30 and 5/8 inches arms. Now, for a guy that's 6'6, 267, to have arms that are barely 30 and a half inches long is just that it's wildly short. The wingspan just over 76 inches. So that makes for a small catch radius. And you got to have a good quarterback to hit that guy. Fortunately, we do have a good quarterback. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you just said there with Roush, and I think he feels like he can kind of do it all. He does have the blocking ability. He does have. I think he's shown a lot more consistency and not to keep crapping on Delp, like I said, it's just more of a thing where like he even with a worse quarterback was able to make stuff happen. I think there is a little bit of concerns with some drops. He did have some really noticeable drops in ball tracking were some issues here with Roush. But other than that, man, like when he gets the ball in his hands, it's what he does after the fact. He just turns into a running back, like a big ass running back that just makes some big plays happen. And that's the type of stuff you really do enjoy when we're talking trying to get playmakers. A lot of what I go off of is what these guys tell me, like Wolf and Frame, what they tell me at the combine. If we're looking for playmakers, this is a guy that can do it. And definitely going into the next guy, I'll have the same sentiment. But he's a guy that I would feel very happy and content with taking because I know there's going to be some production there and a lot of untapped potential. There's a little bit of some concerns, like you said, with the catch radius. But if there's a guy that I think can work with the catch radius, but also would benefit having a big catch radius, it is Drake May, and working with Sam Roush would be very beneficial for either of these guys. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, while we talked about like, yeah, Georgia offense not geared towards passing, et cetera, second leading receiver had like 20 something receptions. Sam Roush was the second leading receiver at Stanford. He had 49 receptions for 545 yards, an average of 11.1, with two touchdowns, which, two touchdowns is not a lot, but he was the second leading receiver in touchdowns in Stanford also. Okay. Again, garbage quarterback play. You're talking 14 touchdowns the entire season. Sam Roush had two of those. The leading receiver there was Williams, had six. So, and 749 yards. So it's like, again, Sam Roush's production within the offense, all right, 50 receptions out of 224 receptions made by the whole team. Like he has basically 20% of the offensive passing production at Stanford. That's a pretty significant pass game share for a tight end at any level, to be honest. And I think he's a very solid player. And I think he's proven himself to be a good blocker. He's certainly got the size, muscle, frame for it. Those the arms are going to be that they'll show up as a little bit of an issue in the blocking game as well. Um, but I think that he's going to be serviceable there, and he could be. I don't think he'll ever be like a superstar tight end number one because I do think he
Sure.
has those physical limitations. But I think he could be a very solid tight end too. I mean, Austin Hooper, you just mentioned him, right? Austin Hooper was never a superstar, but he was solid throughout his career, and he was a guy who could contribute a little bit on both sides of the blocking and passing. So Sam Roush, same sort of player, I think.
And it's a great comp is the Atlanta Falcons era Austin Hooper, where it was like you draft that guy on your fantasy team, somehow, some way, you've got a top five fantasy tight end because he just was the goal line guy. Like you needed him in the red zone. He got those touchdowns and production out for you. So that's a pretty fair comp for us, honestly. Wouldn't I definitely wouldn't hate having the second coming of Austin Hooper. That'd be great. So
Yeah, now this next guy, I mean, that we're gonna talk about, look, he had 70 completely opposite, completely different, tight
yes,
end than the first 2, okay? He had 74 receptions, 727 yards, and 6 touchdowns in a down year, because in
yeah,
2024, he had 94 receptions, 839 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Okay, so over the course of 2 years, you're talking about north of 160 receptions, north of 1,550 yards, and 14 touchdowns. That is solid, consistent production over a 2 year span, which is really kind of what you want to see. Like sometimes I'm wary of some of these college guys that come along and they've been playing 4, 5, 6 years and they pop off in their final year and they're a little older and they're a little look. It's just questionable. You could get lucky for like a 12, 13 game run, but you do this 2 years in a row. I Now I'm sold. Okay. Now I know that that's your skill set and that's just what you do is you go out there, you make catches, you score touchdowns, and you open up things in the passing game for your offense. So yeah, I know you're a big fan of Cozy All. Tell us all about why you like him.
dude. I first saw him in the summer, and just looking back at some guys that like should potentially be entering this draft class. Obviously I saw his size and learning about he's going from Ball State to Houston. Or well, he was initially going from Ball State to Wisconsin. Had an issue with the coaches there. Some speculate it was blocking. I've heard others that are kind of more in his camp that said that it was more so he's not going to get the role he's and opportunities that he's going to get at Houston, which would still benefit him more. So he made the leap to Houston. Whatever the story is, he ended up at Houston, and going from a completely different offense to what he had at Ball State, took the shot knowing they're going to utilize him. You're going to help us at least get some good games and help expand our offense. He obviously jumped at the chance, went to Houston, and had an outstanding productive year. Now, these passes that he caught, I saw like somebody had speculated saying, and this is what happens when you don't watch film or check out these guys or just stat nitpick, saying, oh, 74 catches, it's probably a bunch of dump offs. It's not. He was a lot of it's intermediate. Like he's intermediate, like 10, 15-yard passes, going to even 25, 30-yard passes. He's all over the field, expanding, and it's even what he does after the catch too. He is tough to bring down. He is all bit of that 240. Now he was 250 entering the combine. He's putting on weight to be even more physical at the next level. The main thing people complain about was his blocking, and that even goes back to the Wisconsin exit. Was well, he can't block. That's why, and he can't play in line. And I hear all these excuses, but when you turn on his tape, there's numerous times he was in line. There's numerous times that he's doing fake blocks, and then he pushes out, and then he goes out for a route. He does a lot of disguise stuff like that. And then when he does actually block, it's not that bad. Like it's like just what I'd see out of Hunter Henry. It's not really that like he's not going to knock these guys into the dirt, but he's going to at least try to make a good lane for the running back that or whatever is needed out of it. So there's a lot to like about him. He's a really good kid, real smart. One of the first guys I scouted, and I think like if if there's a guy based off of how Drake May passes the football to his tight ends, this is the guy that I think would excel the most in our offense. and be a very, very popular target for Drake May. He likes these guys that are intermediate, reliable, contested catching guys in that spot because we saw it all over Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper's tape with him, and even saw it with Bryson Nesbitt at UNC. He likes these athletic tight ends. Get him an athletic tight end with size, reliable catcher. Like I freaking love this guy, and it drives me nuts that nobody's on him. So if I have to be the guy leading the Kozio Express, I'm gonna freaking do it. I really hope these guys take it.
Um, yeah. Now, do you know kind of like how his combine measurements turned out? What was his arm length,
Yes,
hand size, all that? I don't have that in front of me.
you were fine. I got you. Because I think he did come down to 6'6", but it's like borderline. Hold on one second. Why is this being slow?
Oh, I got him. All right, 6'6.5",
Yeah.
247,
Yep.
33 and 3/4 inch arms, and
We're
9 and
six.
3/4 inch hands, and almost 81-inch wingspan.
What was his 40 time? Did he end up running that?
So
I
very
think it was like
nice. Oh, I didn't check that.
the
Probably
comp
should have. 4.7.
4.7. Okay. I missed. So unfortunately, even though I'm a draft guy, I
Yep.
missed the combine. It was baby time for me. I'm a new dad, so unfortunately I didn't get to catch any of the combine stuff. So I am kind of recovering from getting all my information.
Congratulations, by the way.
I appreciate it. So I am a little late to the game of having everybody's exact stuff, but in terms of what I saw leading up to the combine, I'm going off of what at least I'm pretty aware of. So no, 4.7 for him, that checks out. He also, I did want to note he did play through an injury from week 2 on, so 74 catches while playing through an injury that he sustained like week 2 or week 3. That's off of the top of my dome, but he did suffer an injury early on in his calf, played through it the entire season.